I'm Dean Safola, and this is the Azure Academy. Continuing with our governance series, now let's go back over to the Azure portal, and we'll go back to the Quick Start Center, and we'll go to Introduction to the Azure Setup, and here is the work that we've been doing around governance, and we've gotten some updates to the Quick Start Center here. And we moved a few things around to make it a little more organized. Today, we're going to be focusing on managing our costs. So starting here in the Quick Start Center gives us an overview of this, focusing on several different areas. And that's where we analyze our cost, we monitor, and then we optimize. So with that, let's click this button, which will take us over to the cost management and billing. Now, this will look slightly different depending on the kind of subscription you have, and that's built on what kind of channel you're in. The big ones are web channels, which are you have a pay-as-you-go account. You opened your subscription with a credit card, and you just go and you pay every month on that card for whatever it is that you use. Another kind of account is a CSP, or cloud service provider. And they have their own way of looking at things in billing structures because they're supporting multiple customers. So there's multiple identities, Active Directories, subscriptions, etc. Another one is EA accounts, or enterprise agreement accounts. And that's the one that we're looking at here. So let's jump right in here to cost management. And again, this is going to be the three big areas that we're going to be looking at, doing some analysis and then creating budgets and alerting, and then doing some optimization. So Azure, as I've mentioned in the past, has several different portals, and these portals are all going to be collapsing down into the Azure portal, which is what we were looking at a second ago. But behind the scenes, these different kinds of accounts that we have fall into these major portal categories. So we have here the enterprise agreement, which is the foundation for how a lot of what happens in Azure gets done. And on top of that is our identity service with Azure Active Directory, and we'll come back to that a little bit later. And then inside there we have management groups, and this is where we can set up ways to group our subscriptions, and we'll cover that in a minute too. And then we have the subscriptions themselves, which within them are the resource groups, and then eventually the resources. So with this structure in mind, this is what is something that we need to get a hold of when it comes to governance, especially in the area of cost management, so we can see that the right parties are being charged back for the right services, and that we can keep a proper view on all of that. So let's first look at the enterprise agreement portal. All right, now this is a sample EA portal. This is not real data. But the big things that are important here in terms of what we're going to be talking about today are these two lines right here. So this is the department admin account and the administrator account. And these both need to be set to enabled in order for what we're going to be talking about today to be working. Now, additionally from here, you can also gain access to the API access key. Now, this is going to be important because this key opens up another area of opportunity, and that is the Power BI interface. So up here under Power BI reporting, there is a link that will take you to the documentation. And the documentation here will tell you how to set up the Azure consumption insights with Power BI, and I've got that set up already. So if we jump in here, we can see that it is a Power BI dashboard, and it does a breakdown of everything that we have across our different accounts, environments, tags, subscriptions, however it is that you want to slice the data. And there are many different tabs in this dashboard, so you can see where your cost is coming from globally, and where those things that drive the most cost. So overall, a very good tool, but one of the directions that we are moving is where we want to have all of this experience from the EA portal to Power BI and all of that to really be inside the Azure portal. So the EA stuff is important. It's not going away anytime soon. So keep an eye on that. But now we're inside the Azure portal. So we've gone from this EA layer here, and now we're inside our Active Directory where we have our identity. And now we're inside our management group structure and further down. So here in cost management again, but I want to bring out some things here in the blade. So we've got our scope, which is our management group, because that's what's in our scope right now. And then we have access control, which we'll return to in a minute. And then cost analysis, we're going to spend a lot of time there, alerting, budgets, advisor. Then we have cloud in, and we have a few things down here for the settings. So Cloudin was purchased quite a while ago by Microsoft as a way to expand what we were able to do. And one of the things that it gave us was the ability to go cross-platform. And it's still there, and you can still use it. But as far as Azure goes, we're definitely bringing our scope down to the cost management and cost analysis that we have here in the portal. But there is a cloud connector here, and if you have a AWS account, then you can add that account, and then you set your AWS properties for your ARN, your ID, and your name of your report, and that will then get you set up to have your AWS data coming into the Azure portal directly. The other item that's here is exports. So exports, like some other features, do not necessarily work at the management group scope yet. They are coming. So let's change our scope here to a subscription. Okay, and now we have our exports. Now you can schedule exports. So what in the world is an export? Well, you can take your usage that happens in the cloud and you can export it from the cloud to a storage account. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, maybe you have some other cost analysis breakdown tools in your finance department or wherever it is that you're accounting for all of this. And then those tools can then go into those CSV files and they can export the data, massage the data to come up with the graphs and charts that you want. So we can get to create a new one by clicking Schedule Exports or the Add button. Either way works. And then we have to give it a name and then select how often we're doing this export, once a week, custom range, daily. So I'm going to say daily. Then we go to the storage here. So for storage, we can create a new account or use an existing account, giving us our subscription picker. And so this one's fine with me. And then I'll pick my MS Dean storage account. And then I'll put it in the storage container called cost, and in a directory called daily cost. And then we'll hit next, and that's the review of what it is that we're doing, and your first export will be available within 4 hours. So let's create. Okay, so there's our export, and let's take a look at our storage accounts and see what that looks like. So here's MS Dean, and it's in blob storage under cost, daily cost, and here's our folder, and we've already got a file. So we can hit the edit blob, and this does not work for all kinds of data, but on some kind of data like CSV files, we can see a preview breakdown of what's in here. Bringing us back to cost analysis. So now we can see, since we're at the management group level, that I've got 2 different subscriptions here, and then resource groups inside both of those subscriptions, and then which services I'm using in the cloud. And this is looking at the month of April, and I can look at this in a accumulated view like we are, or we can change this to a daily view, and then we can see our daily costs breaking down across all of our subscriptions from our management group view. But we can change our scope. Let's go to our management group, and then we'll go to dev and pick this particular subscription. And let's change the way we look at this to a stacked view again. So now we're looking at the daily breakdown of cost across this subscription, and we see the breakdown by resource group, location, and service. But now we can add other ways to group the data. So currently we're just looking at it based on daily costs, but the group here will say, I want to look at everything based on resource groups. Okay, so now we can see the breakdown of the Azure Academy resource group looks like our greatest cost. So let's take that out for a second. And we can see that the scale across the graph adjusts as we remove or add things that we're looking at. So let's change this again to look at service names. So we can see that over these several days, our greatest cost has been our VPN gateway, costing us approximately $3.65 a day. Let's take that out. All right. And then we've got our app gateway over here was our biggest cost. Let's take that out. All right, and now we can see a little more of the data clearly. Now, this is a dynamic and interactive graph because I could click on something like the virtual network word here, and now I'm just looking at those virtual network costs. Now I could do the same thing across a VPN gateway, or I can add individual items so I can look at just those particulars around the data that I'm concerned about. So there you go. Now I've got this particular look at the data that I'm concerned with. Now I want to tell other people about this. So I could, again, export like we looked at earlier, or I can also share this graph. And I can do that through this link. So let's open that up. Okay, and I'm presented again with that same breakdown of data that we were just looking at identically from before. Now I can still look at it based on the resource, which is the full table view, based on the particular scope. So right now we're looking at a subscription. Let's dig into just one of the resource groups. Now, because this is where my VPN gateway lives, we can see that that's still here. And then we've switched resource groups to go to my DR resource group. And then we can see our costs dramatically are different because different items are in different resource groups. So now let's get into some of the budgeting. So let's change our scope back to our subscription view. And we've got our graph based on daily cost. Now I'm going to add a budget. So let's create a new one. Okay, my first budget. And let's set this for, let's say $100. And I know we're already over that, and you'll see why in a second. And this will be for our monthly cost expiring in 2021. And then under the alert section here, we'll check this box and we'll say when I get within 80% of that total amount, I want to have an alert set. And I'm going to give this alert to my Azure admin group, which is an email distribution list. I can also add other recipients here if I wanted to, but that's okay for now. And then you can set multiple thresholds. So let's say at 90%, I also want to send out another email. So let's hit create. Okay, so now let's turn on our budget. And as you can see here, we've got a potential problem. So we can see that if we continue to spend at this rate over the rest of the month, when we are definitely going to be over budget. So we have two choices. Well, I guess really three. First choice is we could put our head in the sand and turn the budget off. That's a bad option. Never mind. What we could do is look at ways to reduce this cost. Based on this, we need, first of all, people who are watching this data. And second, we need ways to control it. So first, on the ways to have people looking at the data, let's go to access control. So we'll go to role assignments. And under role assignments, there are three roles. And that would be the billing reader. That's a role that's been around for quite a while. And then the two newer roles, which is the cost management reader and the cost management contributor. So once we have those permissions set up, then we know who is going to be looking at this information and creating the budgeting information. And then from there, we can look at another avenue of controlling it, which is first with tagging, and tagging means policies. So under policy, under our definitions here, let's look at our initiatives, and we're going to do custom initiatives here. Now, I don't have one already, so let's create one together. So we'll hit the plus initiative definition, and this will be stored at our management group level. So we will apply a default tag for Costcode to all of our resource groups and our resources. And again, we put in who did this and when they did it so that people know what's going on. We add a category, and I'll put in my custom one here for Azure Academy. And then we'll do a search here for append tag. And the one that we want first is here append tag and its default value to resource groups. So let's hit the plus there. And then we will also want to append tag and its default value from the resource group. And now for this, we want to set our tag name and value. So the tag name is going to be Costcode, and the default value is needs a Costcode tag. And then for the tag name that we're going to apply, so that way we're going to say that if you don't provide me a Costcode tag, I'm going to give you a tag that says needs Costcode tag. And then I'm going to apply that to all resource groups that are created, as well as all new resources within those resource groups. We'll get that same cost code of needs Costcode tag. Okay, so that way I can easily find who it is that needs a tag so that I can get those things assigned appropriately. So let's hit save, and now we have our tag. So let's now assign this. Okay, and we'll put in our description again to assign the cost code tag of needs Costcode tag. And we'll do this if you don't provide a tag at build and who did this and when they did it, so everyone else can be aware, and we'll hit assign. So now going back to policies and to assignments, we can see that we have a initiative now that's here for our cost code tagging. So now that that's in place, let's build a resource group, and we'll call it tagging, and we'll hit next. So this is our tags section. So first we're going to leave this blank and just hit review and create. So there's our new resource group, and we can see that it got a tag of needs Costcode tag. Okay, so now let's build a resource in this resource group, like an availability set. Okay, we'll call it tagging AV set, and we don't have an option here to add tags. Let's hit create. And there we are. So if we open that guy up, we go to tags, then it also got a Costcode tag of needs Costcode tag. Okay, so that's all good. Then we've got our tagging in place, so that'll help us to find all the stragglers. And now let's go back to the cost center. Okay, so I've gotten a alert here. So the alert itself says, hey, you're within 80% of budget, watch out. And then you get to today, where I just set this up, and you're in 90% of budget, as again, firing off an email. So what does that email look like? So this is for the My First Budget alert. And there it is, this type of cost, and here's the date of the trigger, and there was the budgeted value, here's your actual value, and that's when you were going to get notified at 80% of budget, which of course I'm way over. And so then you can click on the button here to go to the portal and see what's going on. Now we want to look at how we can control and optimize some of these things. So we sort of looked at that with the budget, so we can shut down systems that are running when we're over our threshold. But now there's one other factor to this that we want to look at, and that is going to be the Azure Advisor recommendations. So the recommendations here come in many different flavors, but the big ones here are related to right-sizing your workloads. We can right-size the VMs, or you have systems that are right-sized, but there's a lot of time when they're not being used, and it will recommend that you shut them down. Or you can get recommendations here, like where it says to delete a public IP not associated with any Azure resources. And then it'll give you the estimate of where you can save that money. And so it'll say basically save $35 a year by deleting this public IP address. So let's do this. So we'll click on our recommendation here, and we have the option to postpone this particular alert or dismiss it entirely. I don't want to postpone it. Which IP address is this? This is my on-prem PIP. So I'm just going to delete this. Okay, so this advisor recommendation will disappear on its own quite soon. It just takes a few minutes before the advisor goes through and processes everything again. So by tomorrow, this should be gone. All right, so along with that, I wanted to show you a couple other things to help you on the costing side. So let's go over to here. This is the Azure Pricing Calculator. So in the calculator, we can see all different kinds of Azure resources. And the one that I'll look at in particular is virtual machines. So by clicking on this, it's going to load it, and then we can click here to view, or just scroll down. And then we see this virtual machine set up here. Now the costing side, yes, is definitely in the SKU that you select. Doesn't matter what SKU, they all have a cost. Let's pick this one, this L32. So the three basic ways that you can reduce your cost is one, run it for fewer hours a month. So this is for 720 hours. This is basically running it 24/7 for an entire month. So what if you reduce the cost? Maybe you only need it to be running for 1 week within business hours. Now that VM costs you $168, okay? So that's one way to reduce the cost, but let's say you need it running all the time. Two other methods is on reserving this VM. So a reserved instance can drop your usage price according to 1 year or 3 year by these rates. So let's say we go to 3 year. So now instead of paying $3,041, now it's $2,600. So the longer you can reserve it, the better. Now another method that you can do is also the Azure Hybrid Use Benefit. Now this is where you have an EA and you have software assurance. Basically it means that you're already paying for your licenses on-prem. You don't need to additionally pay for them in the cloud. So if you use the Hybrid Use Benefit, then you can see that your price drops dramatically because you're not paying for the Windows license in the cloud because you've already bought it on-prem. And if you combine that with having to run for fewer hours in a month, say 120 hours in a month, and you have the hybrid use benefit, then you're paying $330 instead of the $3,000 that it was before. Okay, so these are ways that you can dramatically reduce the cost of the systems that you're running by right sizing them. So I hope that you've enjoyed looking at how to manage your costs in the cloud. And this was over 3 different areas: how to analyze those costs, how to monitor them with budgets and alerting, then optimizing our systems with the Azure Advisor recommendations, and right sizing those workloads. So if this video helped you and you thought it was good, hit that like button, and don't forget to click the subscribe button so that you can be part of the Azure Academy, and be sure to hit the notification bell so that you can get an email when our videos come out, which is roughly once a week. And give me some comments below. Let me know what around here you'd like more information on, and that could be across anything in governance or any other subject that you're curious about in the cloud. I want to thank everybody for helping us get to 1,000 subscribers. That's awesome. So thanks. And if you haven't clicked on the subscribe button yet, please do so that we can keep on growing, and that way we can reach more people. So give out the Azure Academy to all your friends and neighbors. Thanks very much, and we'll see you in the next video. Happy learning.